can you give us some historical insight on tariffs and why America for the last 70 years has been more free trade? We haven't pushed this button of tariffs. But because people a lot, a lot of that's a common theme. People like, well, we've been getting ripped off for a long time. They
Yeah.
can't understand why we haven't done this a lot earlier, right? But there's a reason why we haven't done this.
Yeah. Well, we actually have, and it was the Smoot-Hawley Tariff that kicked this whole thing off about 100 years ago. So we've been a tariff nation, and in the early days of America, Alexander Hamilton, they all favored tariffs in order to raise some money for the government, but never to this extent where we're actually putting a consumptive tax on our own citizens to pay for this, to raise money because they want to cut taxes. This is a very, very weird way of doing it. We have never had tariffs to this degree, but you got to remember, Trump 1.0, there was over $300 billion worth of tariffs. The Biden administration came in and added more tariffs on top of that. But when you look around the world, it's just never been at this level. And the fact that we're coming out with this 10% across the board tariffs, which really, as I said, is a consumption tax for consumers here in the United States, that's a very big precedent right there. And I think it changes the entire global world order, and it changes the way capital markets are going to work. And I'll say it for this reason. When you can't, and Frank was alluding to it a little bit, the Fed meeting is super important, but you got to wonder if this level of tariffs and this intensity is intentional by the Trump administration that wants lower interest rates. He has said that back on the campaign trail and all along. So by forcing the economy to slow down, it forces the Fed's hand to lower interest rates so that our debt payments, which we make every quarter as a country, get reduced a little bit. We spend the second most amount of money we spend as a government is on servicing our debt, which is over $1 trillion, just servicing the debt. So if we can lower that, then there's going to free up more money to do forced deportations, to build walls, to do whatever else is on the agenda of this administration.
Yeah, it feels like, is there a goal? I know there's been a lot of talk. What is the goal number, or is there a goal number that they're trying to receive from the tariffs, right? We obviously know that government spending and DOGE was created to reduce that, but it feels like the uncertainty around the number, it kind of has no rhyme or reason. So from your perspective, like, is there, from the deficit, which is what, 37 trillion now, is this the best method forward, right? Like, I know Shadi alluded to it earlier, right? Sometimes you can't pull the band-aid off too fast.
Yeah.
Does it feel like this has happened, and obviously, is this the best method going forward?
No, but it is a method, and it is sort of taking a sledgehammer to a small nail, because this is actually hurting lower to middle income families more than anybody out there. It's Peter Navarro was a Trump advisor, says it's going to raise $6 trillion, not anytime soon, right? These companies are going to pull back on their shipments. Our companies here in the United States aren't going to order more, so you're not going to feel the impacts of that. Who's going to feel it? Consumers who have to go to the grocery store, load up like they do every single week, feed their families, right? Buy supplies to fix up their small business, order in inventory so they have enough inventory in their small business to be able to make it going forward. So this is more of a punishment against consumers and households in the United States, with the intended impact of making people in other countries pay their fair share. The fact is, we've had a pretty strong economy up until about 2 or 3 months ago that was in pretty good shape. 4% unemployment, GDP at 2.8%, right? Inflation was coming down. It wasn't to where it wanted to be, to where the Fed would like it to be, but it was on its way, moving a little bit lower. So this is kind of like a complete change of the global world order, and it calls into question things like the sacredness of the 10-year Treasury, right? The most widely held, most saved asset in the world, right? People own our debt because they believe that our country will grow and that we'll pay it back. Well, this is a big shot at that right now, and it's also a big shot at the dollar. So if the dollar becomes less desired and doesn't become the reserve currency anymore, which we're a long way from that. But if you lose the yield, the 10-year Treasury yield, and you lose the dollar, you lose the structure of our capital markets, and that's